Okay, so dear Microsoft community, dear student ambassadors, dear students, dear respected guests, I'm thrilled to welcome you all to our third Microsoft NextGen Heroes session with the topic today of deploying a three-tier app on Azure using GitHub Actions. So basically what we're going to do today is take a deep dive in the world of cloud computing, the world of Azure, and also get intact with GitHub and its most famous automation tools like GitHub Actions. Okay, so not to waste any more time on this first slide of mine, let's dig into the agenda of the day. But before I go into the agenda, I want also to thank our proudest support and sponsors for this Microsoft NextGen Heroes community. So firstly, I would like to make and say a big thank you to the Microsoft MVP program, the Microsoft Learn, and especially our proud supporter and community, Microsoft Zero to Hero. So Microsoft Zero to Hero enabled us to host this amazing sessions and also enabled us to have a separate community in their own community and to give such events like these for students, especially for young people who are interested in Microsoft technologies. So for the agenda, firstly, we'll go on with the introduction, in which I'll talk a bit more myself and also about the Microsoft NextGen Heroes team. Secondly, we'll take a deep dive into the Azure world and also GitHub. But before that, we'll also make preparations for deploying that three-tier app on Azure. Finally, we'll see some automation tools like GitHub Actions, and we can see how we can take most of them. And for the last section, I have prepared a recap so that we'll sum up everything that I have said during these 4 sections. Okay, so first I would like to introduce myself. So for those of you who are new to the Microsoft NextGen Heroes, my name is Bojan Ivanovski. I'm currently pursuing my software engineering degree at the University American College in Skopje. Also, I'm a Microsoft Learn student ambassador, and together with my colleagues, Marko Atanasov and Niklas Olsen, who sadly couldn't make it today, we are trying to spread tech vibes in every Microsoft community that we are into, and also to share knowledge, to prepare events such as this one, and also to contribute as much as we can in different Microsoft technologies. About my passions, I would say that I'm currently into DevOps and especially in cloud computing, such as Azure. Also, not to forget my love for automation, because I try to automate everything that it could make my life easier, and that's also the matter with Azure and the DevOps world. So also not to forget to say that I'm a proud member of the Microsoft Learn student ambassadors community, and also a proud member of Microsoft Zero to Hero. Okay, so a little bit about Microsoft Learn and why is it such beneficial for all of us students, but also for other Microsoft professionals or even people who just want to learn. So for the Microsoft Learn community, it's definitely an amazing experience for all of you learners that want to experience different Microsoft technologies, because Microsoft Learn gives you the opportunity to choose between a variety of courses, which are for free, of course. And if you are a person who doesn't want to learn alone, then we also have the solution for you. And those are our brand new learning rooms from Microsoft, in which you can basically join with like-minded peers and learn about a technology or stuff that you might want to learn. It's definitely an amazing experience. I recommend for all of you to try it out and to see how it goes. There are a lot of different learning rooms, so ranging from Azure to I don't know, Microsoft Fabric, Microsoft Intune, or maybe if you are more into the Office 365 packet, then we also have some very interesting courses about that. Basically, every Microsoft technology that you can imagine. And for those learning rooms, you can find them on aka.ms/Microsoft Learn community. Or if you want to join our room, which is Microsoft Zero to Hero, in which also Microsoft NextGen Heroes are a part of, you can type aka.ms/Microsoft Zero to Hero. Or if you have another preference for some other type of a learning room, you can find them at aka.ms/learning rooms. Okay, so that was all for the Microsoft Learn part, and now let's dig into what matters most. So preparations for deployment. I would say that this part is the most important one. Why? Because with proper preparations, you would get the most from your deployment. And why I'm saying this? Firstly, because your application needs to be structured well and needs to be also written in very clear code, I would say, because it will make it easier for you during the deployment process. Now, a little bit more about the application that I chose to deploy. So this was an application that I had created with a few colleagues of mine from university. It was last year, and we decided to make an improved version of the already existing theater management system for our biggest national theater here in Skopje, Macedonia. It was a very interesting project. We all had different roles to fulfill, and my role there was to do the backend and also to deploy the application on cloud. So our app consisted of JavaScript frontend, PHP backend, and a MySQL database. So we didn't want to get it to make it more complicated, because we wanted to make it simple and for for all of you to just understand how one application can be made. So we didn't use any particular framework. For the debugging part, I would say that, yeah, we have experienced pretty much different errors, maybe some fixing during the whole process of making, because it's a live thing. It causes errors, and at that time we were learning how to do that. Some of us were experienced, some of us were not. But at the end, we have made that application, and we have ran it locally, which we made sure that it was up and working properly. So just to show you how that application looked like, I'll just go to my desktop just to find it. Yeah. So here's the app. Basically, this is how the app looks like. It has some description about the theater. It has some shows, as you can see here, some timetables about each show. And yeah, so you can also register and log in, but we'll definitely try out the functionality later on when it is deployed to cloud. Now, just for you to have an insight of what we have done and how this application looks like. So that was the part for the local deployment and how we can set up the app locally. Next, basically my favorite parts, in which I will be talking more about Azure, GitHub, how these two things integrate together. So for the Azure part, I don't know how many of you are familiar with what Azure is, but for those of you who aren't familiar with that, Azure is the cloud computing platform from Microsoft. It basically enables you to do the managing, the governance, and creation of different resources on the cloud, and basically which is supported from Microsoft. And now you'll ask, okay, what is the benefit of having your applications or your system on the cloud, or and instead of having it on a physical server? So firstly, physical servers, as we know, are enormous. They may take up like a lot of space, and you cannot set up a physical server in your room, because firstly it will overheat your room. You would use it as a heating method, and secondly, it takes a lot of administration, people who know how this to manage the server, to update it, to add more storage. So it's all that is costly, and I wouldn't like to talk about the electricity bill that might receive at the end. So that's why having an application of a physical server, it's suitable mostly for companies, enterprises, and even now, even they are now switching to the cloud, because they are starting to notice that it's more efficient, it's more cost efficient, and it's more manageable to do all that stuff on the cloud than having a physical server. And for guys like us, students, it will be too expensive to have it on a physical server, and that's why Azure is the best choice. And also, you just deploy that application there, and you don't bother with details. You don't bother how would this application be managed, and who will be, managing my stuff, my resources, what will happen if something fails on the server, and so on. So you don't care about that. There are guys from Azure that do all of these things, and your job is just to deploy your application there and not to bother with anything. So that was basically a theoretical, little bit theoretically, I would say, about Azure. And I would like to show you how this looks in practice. So this is the first thing that you'll see when you log into Azure. So basically, this is the Azure portal. As you can see, the first thing here is the Azure services. So the most important part of Azure. And when I click here, you can see that there are a lot of services. These categories are ranging from AI, machine learning, analytics, as you can see, DevOps parts, even IoT, migration. So there are tons of categories here that you might utilize for your services. So basically, I don't know a person who knows them all. Every person works in some different categories. For me, I'm generally working in this DevOps category, maybe some database, this database category, the containers part. So yeah, basically just few of the categories. And as you can see here, each category has a lot of resources. So look at this one, AI and machine learning. So a lot of resources, analytics, compute, containers, databases. So a lot of resources. But personally, I'll be using these resources here. So when you use the service, Azure puts it here. So these are the services that I'm most frequently using right now. And from this one, I'll explain a few. So the most important service, and basically I would say the basis of Azure, is this subscription. So what is a subscription? So it's a subscription for Azure is like having your whole account led by Azure, and typically you will need to pay in order to have your account. The pay can be done in monthly basis, year basis. It depends for what you need, for how long you need the subscription, and for what resources will you plan to use the subscription. So imagine it is like a Netflix subscription. So yeah, basically that's the subscription part. And the benefit that we get as Microsoft Learn student ambassadors is that we get these subscriptions for $150 every month, and we can use these subscriptions monthly, and they're every month they're pretty much renewed by Microsoft. So that's the biggest benefit, and that's why I would recommend you to join the Microsoft Learn student ambassadors, which is definitely an amazing place to be. And if you want to learn more, we had the previous session from Microsoft NextGen Heroes with just about it. So you can just go to our YouTube channel and see that amazing video. Okay, now the next Azure services that we'd like to say and introduce to you is the resource groups. So the resource groups is one of the most fundamental Azure services, especially when it comes to the deploying part, because this is like a folder in which all the associated files with that deployment can be found there. So if I click here, the thing that you see is these all resource group. And when I click on a resource group, for example, this one, you can see that it has some resources in it. This is empty, but for example, this one, as you can see, no, sorry, not that one, this one has a lot of resources in it, and all of these resources are somehow related between each other. So this is the web app, this is the database, this is the app service plan, which we'll talk more later, and this is the managed identity, which we'll all explain later. So as you can see, all the related stuff for this resource group can be found here. Later on, we'll see all this in practice and how this works. So don't worry, we'll have time for that. But now just to show you why the resource groups are the most fundamental part of Azure when it comes to deployment. Also, there's some costs management and billing tools in which you can see all these resources here. So how much of your money does all of these take, and to see how you can manage all of these resources. So very important tool, and these tools are basically for databases, which are not important for now. Okay, so this was like a quick I would say an intro to Azure and how it looks like. And now I would like to go to my presentation and to continue where we have left. So before we go on, I made a special slide just for you about the 6 Azure best practices that all of you can try and also maybe use them in practice later on, because from when I was starting with Azure, it was typically a I would say an overwhelming experience, because if you start Azure without any I would say with any knowledge, and you're enthusiastic and want just to see how the things work, well, don't do that. So firstly, no random clicks. Do not click any resources that you're not fond of. Do not buy subscriptions that you would not need. So basically, try to start from something that you already know. And for that, I recommend the Azure Learning Paths that you can find on Microsoft Learn. So there, the Azure Fundamentals course, the courses for Azure AI, or some other related categories. So there, these courses are for free, and if you want to interact more with Azure, you can definitely try these learning paths here. Also, another important thing is the Azure portal, because with the Azure portal, as I shown you before, this is your, I would say, the center of Azure, and everything that you do it from here, and it's also very user-friendly. Other things, I would say that you would need to carefully monitor your resource usage, and you need to be careful when you're creating resources, and to watch out for expensive resources, or setting up, I don't know, some enterprise costs which you don't even need, because you're just doing this for a test, to try out things, and basically you won't need that. So be careful with your resources. And finally, about security, I would say to start simple. Firstly, to not share your subscription IDs, your client IDs, and so on with people you don't know, and especially for those who want to harm you on with these kind of resources. And to learn about Azure security also, which is also fundamental when it comes to deploying your apps on Azure. So those were the 6 Azure best practices. You can find a lot of them on the internet and also on different Azure websites. But I have decided to use this for just to give you like an intro and um, to have to just for you to have a little bit of an insight of how this process really looks like. Okay, so now we can start with the project officially. So this was like a bit of theoretical part. Now let's do the most fun and of course practical part of this GitHub and Azure demo. So firstly, this is the app. So basically, this is the code for the app, all the resources, all the classes, everything. What you need to do first. So the first thing that you will need to do here is to push this code, as you can see, to GitHub. I assume that most of you are already familiar with GitHub and what is GitHub actually. But for those of you who aren't familiar with those things, so this is how GitHub looks like. About the code, so I have pushed my code from the local environment to this GitHub environment. So GitHub is like a social media tool for all of the developers, where you can just put your project and showcase them to the world. And every person that is active on GitHub can use this code if you have decided to put it publicly, or you can keep it private for yourself. So this is the code that I have shown you on VS. And this is the whole deployed code with all of the resources, and also with the README file in which you can see what is this application basically for. So the first step for the deployment is to deploy your code on GitHub. So from there, we would start the process of the official deployment to Azure. So we have the code here. The second thing we need to do is to go to Azure. So on Azure, typically what we would need to do here is to create a resource. So the first resource that we need to create is called a resource group, as I explained in the beginning. And this resource group will have all the necessary resources for us to deploy the project. So this is the resource group. We will click create. We'll give it a name. For example, I don't know, theater management. Okay, the name is available. We'll click review and create. Validation is passed, and we would click create. So the resource group is now created. We have it in our Azure account, and now what we will need to do is add the web app. So what is exactly the resource for the web app, and what does it mean? So here you deploy your front end, back end, so the whole application in this web app. My application is now set up to have both the front end and back end in one, but you can also set it up, separate web apps and separate resources for your front end and for your back end. Basically, it means how you have defined your architecture of your app, and that's how basically you will deploy the app. So for now, I would just create here a web app. So this web app, as you can see, has a separate resource, and we would click create. So after we click create, it will, here, as you can see, the resource group is immediately associated with this because we are creating this resource inside this resource group called theater management. Now we would need to give our web app a name. So basically, whatever name you would like, you can give it. For example, I don't know, theater system, for example. Yeah, it's available, and Azure creates the domain for you. So this is a site that you can visit afterwards, after the deployment and will finish, and we'll see how this looks alike when we finish the deployment. Now, when we come to the publish stuff, here basically you will need to choose between code, container, and static web app. So if we're deploying our project as code, which can be found on GitHub, we'll definitely select this one. If you're deploying your app as a container, for example, with Docker, then you would select this one. Or if you're just deploying, for example, a static web app that does not have any, I would say, proper functionality, or just the front end, for example, you can choose this one. But because we're deploying a 3-layer app, I'll choose the code. Then we'll select the runtime stack. And from our app, it's PHP 8.3. So you can check your version in your app. You can find it there. And also you can use the terminal to see what is the version of your runtime stack currently. But mine, I know that is 8.3. Okay, so now we come to this part, operating system. So here you can basically choose between Linux and Windows. I have tried both, but I don't know. As best practice, they mostly use Linux because it has some additional features and it's more stable than the Windows when it comes to this creation of web app resources. And that's why I will go with Linux now. Region. So what is exactly this? So you can choose the region where your app will have the most public. So for me, I am choosing East US always because this region has a lot of resources available, and other regions may have some limitations when it comes to the resources, and some of your resources may not work. That's why I go with East US, but you can also, I'm encouraging you to try other regions if you prefer that. So it's up to you. Okay, so for the pricing plan, so Azure automatically generates an app service plan that will work like I imagine it's like a virtual machine in the background, because it will make a virtual machine in the background and deploy your application there, and then it will work like a server. So this is like a special Linux server which will host your application. And now you can choose if you want a more powerful server, it will cost you more. If you want this version free, which is, I would say free, but maybe it will cost you, $4 or $5, but it's on a monthly basis. And you can definitely create a new one if you're not satisfied with this one. So, but I would recommend this one for testing purposes, so the free version. And zone redundancy, this is a thing that you don't need to bother right now. So it's you can read it if you want more, but for beginners, you can just read more about it if you're interested. Then we'll click review and create. So now I won't create this resource. Why? Because I have this web app created before, and so that it wouldn't take any more of my money, because I have it already, so it doesn't make sense to have it doubled. So that's why I have done this, just to show you how this process of creating a web app looks like. And then the second part of this deployment process, we need to create also another resource. If we're having a database associated with our app, then we need to also create a database resource. So I'm using MySQL now, so I'll just type MySQL. And as you can see, there are a lot of MySQL resources here. But the thing that I have tried and it works perfectly is this Azure database for MySQL. So I'll click create. You can choose to go with quick create, to advanced create, or maybe if your site is WordPress, you can also choose this. It's pretty much flexible, as the name says. But because I'm explaining this as a beginner, so not any advanced stuff, I would just click quick create, so not to bother you with any other additional stuff. And when I click quick create, Azure will give you automatically this site here. So firstly, what you will need to do is enter the server name. you can, I don't know, you can say my theater server, choose a region, for example, East US. So you need to choose the exact region um, from the app service plan. So be careful here. The availability zone, uh, if you would like, you can choose that, but I choose no preference. So this is generally, you can specify an availability zone in which you deploy your database server, but it doesn't matter for now. This is the most important part. So authentication. You would need to remember this for later. I'll show you when. For example, we can, I don't know, maybe say admin, for example, and you can add some secure passwords because it's a database. So you wouldn't like to your password to be discovered by people who you don't want to tangle with. So after this is set up, you have workload details. Because we are doing just this for a test, you can choose this one. If you choose this one, you can see the price goes up. It goes up pretty much big. So that's why I choose this one, because it's less expensive and is just for testing purposes. Adding a firewall rule is a good practice. Why? Because firstly, it will give you like a it will give you security when it comes to having accessing your database, because you only access the database from your own PC, from this IP address that you now currently have. So you can select this. You can skip this and the backup. So if you want your database to be recovered in a case of disaster or outages or whatever happens in Azure, you can also select this one. So basically, this is how you set up the server, the database server, and also the web app. So these are the two things that you can, this is the easiest part basically. So you just, click buttons and you set up their names. And finally, you can just click review and create. Also, I wouldn't create this one because I have it already in my resource group. And now I'll just go there to for you to see how this all look like. So here's the web app. And here's the MySQL server. So they are already created, as you can see. Okay, so for the MySQL server, now I want to show you a very interesting thing that I think that you might come up to this part till now, because you would say, okay, so I have my database locally set up, and all my schemas, my tables can be found there. So on my MySQL Workbench application, for example, or if you're using, I don't know, MS SQL, you can use the MS SQL server management tool. So maybe you have made your database there, or some other database management system tool. So doesn't matter. You can find all of these resources on Azure. But the thing is, your database is deployed locally, and now you think, okay, how can I connect my database, which is now set up locally, with the cloud environment? And this is the part where it's most interesting. So when you create this server, remember that we have set up authentication, a username and a password, and that generates a special connection string. And that connection string can be found here. So as you can see, these are the connection details that Azure created for me. And you can connect this server with your, for example, database management system tool. As you can see, Azure gives you recommendations on how you can connect your local database server and your database with this cloud one. So these are the needed connection details. And when I click, for example, if you're using MySQL Workbench, it gives you a whole manual here, a whole guidance on how you can connect this server that we have created in the Azure with your local environment. So basically, what you do is open the MySQL Workbench, do all these things here, as you see. So you open the MySQL workbench, you click add a server, you connect with this server that you see here that you have created, and automatically you would have that server on MySQL workbench. Okay, so now the things get more complicated. Why? Because you have in your local server, you also have a local database. Firstly, this server, Azure database server, is empty. So you need to create a database, as you can see. So you can click add, and you would create a database. I have created already a database, which is called the Theater DB, as you can see it here. And this database is now empty. And what would I need to do now is import and export data. So I go to my local database, do an import, take all of the data, all the schemas, tables, everything, and export it into my new Azure database. And after that, you would have your database set up on the cloud. So Azure database service and Azure database server, and also an Azure database, which is also for MySQL. So this is how you would connect your local database with the Azure one. After you do this, now the things get easier. So now we get to the part of using GitHub. So the database is deployed. Now the thing that we need to do is connect our web app resource on Azure with GitHub. But before I do that, I want to introduce you to something that is called GitHub Actions. So as I mentioned before, GitHub is a big platform. So it has a lot of things, functionalities, and which you can try. But for me, the most important thing, and why I love GitHub so much, is the CI/CD part. So what is CI/CD? CI/CD is the continuous integration and continuous delivery or deployment process. And what is that actually? It's a streamline. It streamlines and accelerates the software development lifecycle. In other words, it means that every change that you make to your code locally, it will affect your cloud deployment. Let me give you an example. Imagine you have your app on the cloud, everything is working well, and then a client or maybe a stakeholder comes to you and says, okay, I don't like this feature. I want it to be changed, or I please remove this feature. The customers are not satisfied with it. You go to your app, you remove that feature. But what happens if you don't have an CI/CD tool? You basically need to remove your app from the cloud and redeploy it again. And imagine doing that for 100 times, or imagine doing that in an enterprise company in which there is no space or time for your application to be down, because you would lose customers. In this case, CI/CD comes very handy, because you would change things in your app without the customers noticing that your platform is down. So it is up. You're doing live changes. That's the thing where CI/CD comes very handy. And GitHub Actions is a CI/CD tool from GitHub, and it's powered by all its workflows, which we'll now see how they work. So if I go to GitHub here, what can I see? I can see an action button, which when I click, it will open my workflows. Okay, now you'll ask the question, okay, what are workflows exactly? So workflows are scripts, and they're executed from line 1 till the last line. So they're executed sequentially, line by line. And why are they important? Because they give you the CI/CD tool in a script, and you can use this tool to streamline your software development lifecycle. So basically, they're very important. And later on, we'll see how these things exactly work. But before that, I would like to show you a special video that I have made just for you on the most interesting part, and that is how we connect GitHub with Azure using GitHub Actions. So I will just quickly go here, and you can see now this video that I have prepared. So this is the video. Let me just play it for you. Okay. Sorry. So I can open it from here. Yeah. So what happens now? This is the web app that I have showed you previously. So this was the place that we were a few minutes before. And there is a special thingy here called deployment. So this deployment slot is basically the most important part of this web app resource. Why? Because from here, you connect your project, which is currently on GitHub, so with any external provider for projects or codes like GitHub, and you connect that provider with Azure. So this is how it works. You click on Deployment Center, and after you click on Deployment Center, this page here will open up. And what does it say here? Source. So here you would select your code source, and you know that we have a lot of different code sources. So from GitHub to GitLab, as you can see here. So GitHub, Bitbucket, local Git. So there are a lot of code sources and pages here that you can select to do a continuous deployment. Or you can use Git, for example, for manual deployment, but I told you the cons of doing the deployment manually. So because our project is deployed on GitHub, I'll choose GitHub, and look what happens now. Azure automatically discovers your GitHub profile, and as you can see, I'm signed here as my account here. It automatically discovers it. But if I, for example, log out now from my GitHub and connect with my other account, then that account will pop up here. So Azure automatically connects with GitHub and knows what your account here is. So it's a very, very nice tool. Then what you will need to do now is select the organization, so your account again, and you chose your repo. So my project is deployed in the repo theater seat booking, and I'll choose that one. And I'll choose a branch. So in the branch, there are a lot of my colleagues' branches. So this was mine branch, but I wouldn't use this one because I'm now deploying to the main branch. So want all the branches to be affected with this deployment. So they wouldn't need to, so that I wouldn't need to do this only on my branch, because I would, I maybe would test something on my branch, and this will affect all the branches, so the main branch. And the workflow option, so I would select the workflow, and Azure will generate a special workflow file called main theater project.yml in the selected repository and branch. So Azure will create this one for me. So I wouldn't bother with creating a workflow by myself. I'll give information to Azure, and it will create that for me. Also, it remembers my runtime stack, because I have already added, when I was creating the web app, I mentioned that I want the runtime stack to be PHP and the version to be PHP 8.3. Okay, just to fast forward about this. So here, what is this part actually here? Let me, yeah, okay, so what is this part here? Authentication settings. So authentication settings lets you connect your GitHub Actions workflow with Azure. So you can do two authentication types. The first one is user-assigned identity, which means that you would give Azure the credentials, and Azure will do the authentication for you. It's basically more secure, and you have your special identity provider managed by Azure. But you can also do your basic authentication, in which the basic authentication means that your username and password that you would use for logging it, for connecting your GitHub Actions workload to Azure, will be set up in the header of every link that you would add. So I would say that I wouldn't prefer this one, and I would choose user assigned identity because Azure will do it for me. I wouldn't bother with authentication. I choose my identity, and now Azure will do the magic for me. So now the thing is that we have the opportunity to preview how our workflow will look like. So this is the workflow that Azure created for me. Now I will go to GitHub quickly and explain you what this workflow does and what properties does it have. So, for example, I can view the workflow from here. And okay, now this is the one that I don't need. Let me just find that. Yeah, okay, I can use this one. It's the same. Okay, so this is the name of the workflow. This is what happens when the workflow is when you push the code on GitHub. So it on push trigger branch main, the thing that I selected before. And after you trigger the branch main, start running the script. By start running the script, I mean run the following jobs: build and deploy. So in the build part, it runs my app service plan, Ubuntu, which I chose to be Linux. So it literally makes a virtual machine in the background. And on that virtual machine, it says, okay, set up PHP and zip the whole deployment. So all those things that you have seen on GitHub are zipped into one file called release.zip and uploaded to the deployment job. So uploaded here. After that, the deploy job says, okay, I'm running again the Ubuntu latest. The environment is now production. The permission says, okay, you can write on this part. So you have permissions to write, to change files. And what are the steps? It unzips the whole zip that we have created from the build job, and it logs to Azure with the credentials that I have gave from my account, the thing that we did before, and it says deploy this app to Azure. And that's it. This whole script deploys my app to Azure in just 74 lines. And this, I didn't touch anything of this. This was all created for me from Azure. And now let's see what happens on the video. So I click save here. Wait, it is somewhere here. Yeah. So I click save. And look what it says: setting up deployment, setting up GitHub Actions and the deployment pipeline. So after this, the thing is, the workflow starts working in the background. And now this is how the process looks like. As you can see, the build job is already done because I have fast forwarded it, because for this to finish, it takes about 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how big your application is. This one doesn't have that much resources, and that's why these jobs are executed fast. And now I have fast forwarded to the last part of the job, which is deploy, and it says deploying to production, which means it deploys it to Azure. And after some time here, you can see it takes some minutes. Now I will just fast forward it, so not to waste any more time, and to see that this is successful. And as you can see, the application is deployed. So all the jobs have finished. And look what GitHub will give me now. When I click here, it gives me the link, automatic link through my Azure website. This is the website that I have created. It's called theater.azure.websites, azurewebsites.net. So I have my application on the cloud in just 6 minutes with a click of 4 or 5 buttons. So this is how CI/CD comes in handy, and this is how it helps you streamline your development processes. And finally, now to see if all this is true and it works, let's open this site. And it will take a few seconds, and voila, we have the website deployed on the cloud. This is the exact site that you have seen on the video, and this is a proof that the site is deployed on Azure. Now, let's see the functionalities of the website real quick. So let's make a user. For example, I don't know, maybe Carol, for example. Carol, I would say Johnson here. Carol at Gmail. Okay, just this is like some stuff to test it, to test if it works. So I would choose a password and I will click register. And the important thing is it works. So also the database is now connected with Azure. So this wouldn't happen if the database wasn't connected. And now we can choose one of the shows. So maybe this one, for example. And please don't mind the dates. They're, I would say, a little bit old. And I would select one of these dates. And you can also choose a seat, for example. Okay, let's choose these ones. And it adds them to the cart. And I would click reserve. And it's success. So my seats have been reserved for this show here. So basically, we have done it. We have deployed the site to Azure using the CI/CD tool called GitHub Actions, and we can finally log out. Okay, so basically this was everything that I have planned for today for me to show you for this event. And now I would like to sum it up in what is called the big picture. So now I would give you a little sum up of everything that we have done till now. So if you want to make changes to your website, you're not, how would I say, you're not satisfied with your website, then you can go to your favorite IDE or text editor or in this case, code editor, and you can make the changes and push them to GitHub. When you push them to GitHub, this GitHub Actions workflow that we have seen will trigger. It will activate the main branch, and it will process all the necessary changes that you have made. After that, they will be directly transferred to Azure, and you would have your application, your new version of the application up and running within a second. That's all for the part of Azure and GitHub Actions. But we're still not over yet. I would just take a few minutes of your time to announce our next session, which will be definitely an amazing session, which I invite you all to be present, because we'll have a special guest coming directly from the Microsoft MVP and Microsoft Regional Directors world. And his name is Kent Agerlund, and he will explain an amazing story of how is it like to be active participant in the Microsoft MVP program, and also how it's like to be a Microsoft Regional Director and to lead your own company. So it will be an amazing session. We are waiting for all of you on the 14th of November. Mark your calendars. It will be at the same time as this event, so it's 8 p.m. Central European time, and I hope that we'll have an amazing discussion with Kent, and also I expect a lot of questions for these sessions. Also, I would, if you have any questions which are dedicated to my presentation. The floor is yours. You can ask them now. I would just quickly go to the StreamYard studio to see if you have some questions for me. So okay, so we still don't have any questions, but please, if you have any, let's get on with the questions. I'll just wait a couple of minutes. If there are any questions, you can write them in the chat. Okay. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, then it was a pleasure of myself to be today's host and to have this amazing session when it comes to the deployment of three-layer app to Azure using the GitHub Actions tool. And I really hope to see you all on the next sessions of Microsoft NextGen Heroes. And for the end, I would wish you an amazing weekend ahead, a very productive one also, and all the best wishes from us, the team from Microsoft NextGen Heroes. So have a good evening and goodbye from me.